Hey, Pakistan class, this is Brendan Hill, and this is my presentation entitled The Original Sin. It's actually nothing to do with the Ten Commandments that God has given us, but actually about the first military coup that happened in Pakistan. During the presentation, first I want to go over what Pakistan was like before, which led way to the coup, why the coup happened, and then a little bit about the guy who was behind the coup, and then what effects he had on Pakistan, or what effects the coup itself had on Pakistan that we can see today. So I wanted to start by talking about the state that Pakistan was in before the coup in 1958. And so obviously Pakistan started in 1947 when the partition happened. And I inserted that little picture in the corner there to show everybody how much fun it looked to be in the partition. It really doesn't look like all that much fun. But in 1956, they finally came out with a constitution. And as we know from our background or in the homework in class, the Constitution set up the Prime Minister, the President, and then divided powers into the branches. But from 1951 to 1958, Pakistan was struggling pretty hard with prime ministers and whoever else was in power. There had actually been six in the years of 1951 to 1958, which is pretty crazy. So they were really, really struggling. That's about one a year if you average it out. But in 1958, the president was President Mirza, and he actually enacted martial law in October of that year because there had been some opposition heading up in East Pakistan. So with that going on, Ayub Khan, who was actually the army general that President Mirza appointed, usurped him in power, and this is known as the first military coup of Pakistan. In my mind, a coup is like crazy mutiny, people running around like all over the place, machetes, whatever else, blood. But actually, this coup is very easy transition and very peaceful. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Ayub Khan and who he actually was and how his home life affected him. So he was actually a natural Pakistani, born in the northwest province of Pakistan. I don't know the name of the province because it is 16 letters long and I don't know how to pronounce it or spell it. So during that time he'd grown up, his dad was an officer in the British Army. And after his primary education, they sent him into a Muslim academy, but apparently he didn't like it too much because he straight up left and enrolled in the Royal Military Academy of Sandhurst. So I don't know what kind of idea or what his dad was like as an officer, but Ayub Khan did very, very well in Sandhurst, and because of that, he was commissioned as an officer in 1928. There was a couple things that surprised me about his service in the British Indian Army. Number one is that he actually fought in World War II. He was on the Burma front from 1944 to 1945, and then before that, from 1936 to 1937, he participated in the Waziristan War. I apologize for his pronunciation, but it's also spelled very hard. So after that, because of his experience in the army and his officers actually looking at him and seeing who he was promoted to commander-in-chief in 1951. Not because of his seniority, but because they looked at him as like, oh, that's an apolitical officer, meaning he didn't participate in politics. But as we found out later, that's totally wrong because he became the president. In 1958, obviously, and then in 1974, he died of a natural illness. But one thing about his life that I really appreciate is how awesome his mustache is. I put that picture up because in every picture I found, he just had this incredible mustache. So some of the things that he did during his rule as president of Pakistan was number one, as you guys know, some of this is going to be some from the background or a recap of it. There was like the vote. He put out a vote to all the tribal elders and whoever else, and they came back with a resounding yes for Ayub for president. Just because I'm sure there had been a lot of hard feelings towards the last guys who were prime ministers. So in 1962, he actually also lifted martial law and came out with a new constitution. However, this constitution was not one similar to ours. It had a couple of caveats as no more prime minister, and you had pretty much all of the veto power that you wanted, and you had to be at least a lieutenant general in the army to obtain president. So in 1965, there were some more elections, and he won against somebody named Fatima Jinnah, also related to the other Jinnah who was, I guess, part of the leadership during the partition. And then in 1965 is kind of when his rule went the other way. There's the Indo-Pak War in which the Indians kind of took Kashmir and all that sorts of stuff, and that nobody liked that just because nobody likes Indians in Pakistan. And then because of this, Bhutto resigned and took up opposition against Ayub. And then finally it got so bad that President Ayub handed off the reins to Chief General Yaha Khan. So because of that, Pakistan still struggles. So lasting effects of it on Pakistan. There's a couple of things. Number one, it kind of set up the scene for a lot of other military coups, a lot of other military leaders, and that has been going on for a while. And then it had some positive effects, though. Like, number one, he had really good relationships with the United States. However, the negative effects is just like everything else in Pakistan. He was probably a little bit corrupt. There's been evidence of that. And after he resigned, Pakistan just goes back to the exact same way it has been before. And that's what this picture is. It's just kind of everybody just like, what? Like, we're still Pakistan. That's it for my presentation. You know all about the first military coup in Pakistan, Ayub Khan. And then in the next slide, I put in a bunch of videos where, number one, he comes to the U.S., meets President Kennedy, it's black and white, it's exciting. And then the next video is all about him and himself, if you guys want to watch those. Other than that, I apologize for how many sniffles you heard throughout the presentation. I'm just getting over a cold. And I'm not going to say thanks for watching because I know you guys are all forced to do this for your homework, but thanks for watching anyway.